sports.
We are Black Horse. We are Sun Sports.
Tonight at Tropicana Field, the Rays continue their homestand with the wrap-up game of the series against the Seattle Mariners. Rays last night stopping a 6-game losing streak with a dramatic victory. And so the Rays pick up a game on Boston. They're running second 3 back of Boston in the AL East. And in the wild card right now, they occupy the top spot along with the Oakland A's. Hi again, everyone. Welcome to an evening of Rays baseball with Brian Anderson. I'm Dwayne Statz. Good to have you looking in tonight. Todd Callis along in just a moment. Well, not only did the Rays in dramatic style come up with their 8th walk-off win last night, tonight another reason to celebrate, and that's the return of Alex Cobb.
One of the mainstays of this Rays rotation is going to come back tonight. He went down off, obviously, that line drive that he took on June the 15th. But this is what he did before that. Again, one of the top guys in this rotation, throwing the ball extremely well. And you had better believe that he's not only extremely excited to be back tonight, but the adrenaline is going to be pumping at a very, very high rate. So it's going to be very important for him to control his emotions. And I think that he said it best when he started his rehab assignment. He's like, listen, I am tired of taking questions about my injury. I am tired of hearing about it. I am tired of seeing it. Well, he's going to get his opportunity to go out there and pitch tonight, which is what he wants to do. And we all hope that it goes extremely well.
And it comes at a time when the Rays, from time to time in this last week and a half, have seen the starting pitching not be as deep and as strong as it has been all year. He is a welcome addition here to come back. With more on what Alex Cobb is thinking about all of this, let's go to Todd Callis.
All right, Dwayne, you guys are right. Alex Cobb would rather not see the video again of Eric Hosmer hitting the line drive off his head. Maybe this will be one of the last times we see it. It was exactly 2 months ago on the same mound where he'll be starting this game in just about 5 minutes or so. We flash it back. Eric Hosmer, scary moment here. And Alex Cobb takes the line drive right off the right side of the head, right by the top of the ear. And he went down immediately. Ron Porterfield, head athletic trainer for the Rays, did a remarkable job controlling the situation and taking command out there on the mound. You see the reactions of David Price, obvious concern, Luke Scott, and others in the Rays dugout. And now here we are 2 months from that day, and Alex Cobb is back. We caught up with him a couple of days ago and asked about what he thought would be the case out here when he takes the mound and how he would feel.
The ease that the doctors gave me and letting me know that everything was going to be all right. And, you know, pretty much the first night we kind of knew that after there was no skull fracture and there was no bleeding in the brain, we realized that it was going to be just a slow, steady recovery process. And once that was over, that it would be back to normal. I just want to go up there, and my same mindset will be the same as when I was pitching before, and that's to compete every pitch, every batter, and get as deep into the game as I can. And hopefully, you know, the competitive side of me will take over in the different situations, and I'll be able to keep this team in the ballgame no matter what. I don't think anybody that's put on a professional uniform or even any uniform will want to be at a less caliber of what they were before an injury. That's just the human nature. You want to get back to the form you were in, and you know, I feel comfortable in that I will be able to get back to that form.
So he's missed roughly about 10 starts, 2 months, made a couple of rehab starts for the Charlotte Stone Crabs, and there you see him live with less than 6 minutes to go. Alex Cobb makes his return to the mound here at Tropicana Field, exactly 2 months since leaving that mound on a stretcher after being hit by a line drive. About 90 pitches tonight is the count you should look for Alex Cobb. We're ready for baseball with Dwayne and BA right around the corner.
Sun Sports. Brought to you tonight by Just for Men, Mustache and Beard. By Toyota, let's go places. By Coventry Healthcare, coverage so you can keep living the life you want. Go live, we've got you covered. And by Checkers, feast on. It will be the Rays and the Seattle Mariners in the rubber game of this series. There is last night's hero in the walk-off win. Rays put together a 5-4 victory. Back with Game 3 after this. Anticipated victory last night, we welcome a much anticipated return tonight. For the first time in 60 days, Alex Cobb goes to the hill for the Rays. Exactly 2 months after being struck on the right ear by that line drive off the bat of Eric Hosmer, Alex Cobb goes back to the hill, ready to go to work and make his 14th start of the year.
You see the season numbers here on Alex Cobb, brought to you by Coventry Healthcare of Florida. You can throw these out the window. Tonight for Alex Cobb, it's going to be all about managing that adrenaline that's pumping through the body right now. Anytime you're that long of a time off, 2 months, especially after what he had gone through, it's going to be all about managing those emotions, controlling those emotions, and there's no better way to do that than to just get out there, get locked in, get that first pitch out of the way, and then go to work.
And here's the lineup he'll face tonight, brought to you by Sweet Face Supermarkets. Brad Miller leads it off again, followed by Nick Franklin and Kyle Seager, the third baseman, hitting third. Kendrys Morales is the DH with Raul Ibanez in left. Justin Smoke, the first baseman, hit sixth. Michael Saunders out of the seventh spot ahead of the center fielder Dustin Ackley. Henry Blanco, the catcher, will bat ninth against Alex Cobb.
Let's take a quick look at the Rays defense as it lines up tonight behind Alex in the outfield left to right. Bourgeois, Fold, and Rodriguez across the infield third to first. Longoria, Escobar, Zobrist, and Loney. Jose Lobaton will be behind the plate.
So Joe Madden has his club in at 67 and 51 to start play tonight. Rays finding the winning side of the ledger last night, knocking off this club from Seattle 5-4, and so with the series even at a game apiece. First pitch of this game presented by Pinch a Penny. Pitch on its way, and Brad Miller fouls it out of play down the left field side. So the first pitch back, a strike from Alex Cobb, and that's one of the things he is known for, throwing strikes. High with the breaking ball.
Alex typically with very good command, and that'll be something to look for tonight because he only had 3 rehab starts, and of course that first one cut short because of a blister. Only 2 pitches.
There's a line shot grabbed by Loney. Great catch by the Rays first baseman to record the first out.
Now you can always use some help from your defense, and James Loney, good glove man, good throw man, tremendous defense all around this infield, ready to go. That's all he had time to do.
3 pitches into this game, and a great play like that, Alex Cobb's ready to settle in.
That's it. That's all you really, after that first pitch, you just go right back to work.
Here's Nick Franklin, switch hitting infielder. First pitch is a fastball. That's a strike. Franklin fouled that fastball back.
I think for Alex that right now is probably the most at ease that he's been all day long. It's the buildup, the anticipation of getting back out there. That's the worst part of it.
You're right. It might be the calmest and the most, the pitch high, the most he's felt at home in 2 months. He's been anticipating this moment and getting into the game.
Yeah.
That's going to be foul. Still 1-2.
You know, you heard him in his comments say that the night that he got hit, when there was no bleeding on the brain, there were no skull fractures, that he knew that he was going to get back, but that it was going to be a long, laborious process. So even at that point, you're already starting to anticipate that chance to get back out on the mound in a big league game. And 2 months it takes. Now that you're finally out there, deep breath, doing what I love to do.
Franklin, a big cut at the pitch up. Would have been out of the zone, but 1-2 in the fastball. He fouls it back. Now, Cobb had the concussion that led to the vertigo symptoms. Franklin fouls the changeup. So it's still a ball and 2 strikes to the second baseman of the Seattle Mariners. Alex Cobb, just 25 years old. And he strikes out Franklin. Breaking ball, 2 up and 2 down. The other thing, and this sounds exactly like Alex Cobb, what you would expect to hear from him making this start. He says, I'm just going out and trying to help the team win. That's what he's all about.
Yeah, he is one of your true team guys. He's one of those guys. Well, and we've seen that in the way that he's pitched. Some of his worst outings have been the ones that we've been most impressed by because he's taken it for the team. He's thrown complete games, given up 8 or 9 runs. So he is out there, just like you said, to win, whether that's 7-6 or 2-1.
Kyle Seager in the batter's box, and the Rays have a shift on for him with Escobar on the first base side of second. That's a strike. Seager going forward, really the centerpiece of this Seattle lineup, and the guy they anticipate will be around for a long time and be very productive. 2 balls and a strike.
Well, that's what Seattle has been trying to do. It started with moving in the fences at Safeco this year, trying to build up the offense somehow, some way. They've got tremendous amount of pitching prospects on the way.
Fly ball center field, right back down the middle, and Fold is there to make the catch. It's a 1-2-3 inning for Alex Cobb. Rays coming in to hit, no score. Take a look at the lineup put together by Joe Madden, presented by Sweet Bay Supermarkets. Sean Rodriguez getting the started right and leading off. Will Myers hitting second, the DH. Evan Longoria third with Ben Zobrist in the cleanup spot. Fidel Escobar up hitting fifth in front of Jason Bourgeois, the hero of last night's game. James Loney hit seventh. Jose Lobaton eighth, and Sam Fold in center will bat ninth.
Now taking the mound tonight for the Seattle Mariners going to be left-hander Joe Saunders, looking to get things back on track. You see the season numbers there. 25th start, 10 wins, go along with 11 losses. Those numbers brought to you by Coventry Healthcare of Florida. But his last 5 starts, just a 2-3 record, an ERA approaching 7. And the problem has been base runners. 25 and a third innings. He's given up 42 hits, 11 walks, 1 hit batter. And that all adds up to 54 base runners in 25, a little over 25 innings. Just too many chances for the opposition.
First pitch from the lefty is inside to Sean Rodriguez. Saunders has been tough on left-handed hitters this year. Right-handers hitting over 320 against him, and as a result, this lineup heavily right-handed. High fly ball to left. Ibanez out there in left, waiting for this one to come down, 1 away.
Well, let's take a quick look at that Seattle defense as it lines up in the outfield left to right. Raul Ibanez, Dustin Ackley, and Michael Saunders. Across the infield, third to first, Kyle Seager, Brad Miller, Nick Franklin, and Justin Smoke. Henry Blanco will handle the catching duties.
Will Myers. Will connected last night for the 9th time this year. a one hopper deep short. Miller's throw is in time. Myers out on the first pitch.
If there is one thing that you want to look for with Joe Saunders, and that is first pitch strikes. Very important to a lot of pitchers, to most pitchers, but to Saunders, it is extremely important. You like to throw these numbers out there when they're eye-opening, but after he gets ahead of a hitter 0-1, on-base percentage is .266. He falls behind 1-0. The on-base percentage then goes up to almost .450. A huge swing. He needs to pitch ahead, and I mean right from Jump Street.
First pitch to Longoria is down and in. A ball, no strikes. And with the breaking pitch to Evan. There's a strike.
Saunders primarily to right-handed hitters. The fastball changeup. We did see the breaking ball, and you will see that mostly early in the count, just like he started Evan with.
Tried to throw one there, and it didn't break much.
No, it did not. That thing squirted out. You can see right now, taking a look down at the hand, the ball, making sure that you get the grip. Every now and then that'll happen on that pitch.
Ground ball right to Franklin at second. It's flipped to first, and it's a 1-2-3 inning. Top and bottom. On to the second. No score.
For the Rays in 2 months, David Price, before the game, talked about the importance of having number 53 back in the rotation.
Before Alex Cobb went down, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. He really was. And just watching what he was able to do, every 5 days, when he took the ball out there for us was, it was unbelievable. I haven't seen that many swings and misses ever, on the baseball field. I feel like I've played with some pretty good guys, and just the amounts of swing and misses that he was able to get, and just, nobody seemed comfortable in the box against him. And I really feel like he was one of the best pitchers in baseball at the time before he went down, and getting him back out there on the mound for us every 5th day is definitely going to be a pick-me-up. And
David Price with some kind words about Alex Cobb, guys.
Pretty good assessment of the importance of Alex Cobb to this rotation by David Price. Pitch is down and in, a fastball. So it's a 2-ball, no strike count to Morales. Kendrys Morales leading off. He has 17 home runs on the year. Moves it foul. It's 2-1. Not a lot of at-bats against Cobb in this lineup. Morales has 5 career at-bats against him. He's 2 for 5. Ackley, who's hitting 8th, is 2 out of 8 with a home run off him. He has the most at bats against the Rays right-hander. This is the 4th career start for Cobb against the Mariners. He's 1-2 in his previous 3 with a 3.52 ERA.
His last time against the Mariners was almost a year ago. It was August the 13th. And that was in Seattle, and he went 7 strong, gave up just the 1 earned run, and picking up the only win that he has against this club.
Yeah, that's just 2 days before the Rays were victimized by Felix Hernandez in that perfect game last year. Today, the anniversary of that.
Yeah, wow, and what a game that was. I mean, Felix Hernandez, talk about being locked in. Maybe the best pitched game I've ever seen. And I can remember us talking 3rd, 4th inning saying,
uh-oh.
Yeah, this guy's got a chance. That was early.
Fly ball toward right center field. That's got some carry on it. Bold is there against the wall and making the catch. Well, that ball got in on Morales. He's so strong that he got a lot of carry on that one.
You know, that was the second one, and you're right. I didn't think that ball had any chance out there in right center field. You see Morales pulls the hands through, able to get part of the barrel of the bat to that, get it out deep into right center field. But there was another ball the other night, might have been last night's game, where it was just a reach swing and went out to right center. They got to turn the AC down here.
Boy, they could do something, I'm telling you.
Blowing heavy out that way.
I think that was Quintero, wasn't it?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, he reached out and hit the ball to the warning track.
Yep.
And that got a lot of carry, and so did this one off the bat of Morales. Strike the count to Ibanez now. Shift on for Ibanez. One and one the count. Upstairs, 2-1. You know, Cobb said he did not anticipate going to the mound tonight. He had those rehab starts, but didn't anticipate being preoccupied with the idea that there could be a line shot back at him. And it's one thing to have your mind there and establish that. Another thing to make the body sync up with your mind. Oh, a high shot back into deep right. Rodriguez back, and that one is going to get out of here. A fastball on 3-1, and Ibanez hits his 25th home run. That's his first home run since July the 12th when he hit 2.
And that goes back, well, counting this ball game, 22 starts for Ibanez since his last home run. That was a no-doubter. He caught this flush, middle of the plate, a little bit of an uppercut swing there, and a no-doubter.
The Mariners have hit a lot of home runs this year. And Ibanez has just hit his 25th. You can see all the Mariners in double figures in home runs. They're 3rd in the American League in home runs hit.
And that list didn't even show them all. They have 8 guys that have double-digit home runs, more than any other team in all of Major League Baseball.
And here's the thing. They pulled the fences in a bit at Safeco Field, but they've hit a lot of home runs on the road.
Second most behind the Baltimore Orioles in home runs on the road. So you're right. It's not just about home cooking.
1-1 to count to Justin Smoke. Chop right side with the Rays putting that shift on. Zobrist perfectly placed. That's out number 2. Yeah, Cobb had said that he doesn't anticipate any lingering thoughts about line drives coming back, and that's a big hurdle to get over.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that you start to get over. It's starting with his simulated game here, You know, when a hitter gets in the box, that's when you're initially going to feel. If you feel anything, you're going to feel it then. But then as you go through that rehab process, and even though it was only 3 starts, one of them cut short just 2 pitches in because of a blister issue. But once you start to work your way through them and have an honest assessment, yeah, by the time you get here, that should be out of your mind. That's the key. It should be. Some guys are going to get over it quicker than others. Some guys may never get over it. Alex Cobb, very strong-minded, and I think his kind of what you're alluding to. He said, listen, all of the good memories of this game outweigh that one bad one.
Two and one. That's consistent with the way he goes about his business. It's in there at the knees. Off speed, changed up on him, and it's 2-2. And a bit doubled up on the changeup, and the count is full.
Well, this one kind of sails on him. Not the typical trajectory of the changeup, but as you can see with Fox Tracks right there, it sure looked like it caught the zone.
Cut and a miss. Saunders out on strikes. Came right back with another changeup to get him. A run on the home run. It's 1-0 Seattle. Second inning in tonight's game and all season. Tires Plus donates $100 to the Pediatric Cancer Foundation for every Tampa Bay Rays home run televised on Sun Sports. Well, Ben Zobrist goes from the leadoff spot the last couple nights into the cleanup position in Joe Madden's lineup. Escobar to follow, and then Bourgeois. Upstairs, ball one.
It was Ben Zobrist who got it started last night for the Rays in the 9th inning of Farquhar.
2-0. Rays facing Joe Saunders, 32-year-old lefty. He's fared much better at Safeco than he has on the road. Up about a run and a half more for 9 innings on the road than he has at home. 2-1 here to Ben Zobrist. We'll even the count. popped up on the right side. Smoke into foul territory. One away in the Rays' second inning. Tonight's game available in Spanish via SAP, brought to you by Coventry Healthcare of Florida. Lionel Escobar. Escobar lays off the changeup, moving down and away. Stayed wide. 2-0.
This is the same type of pitcher that we saw last night. Aaron Harang from the right side, Saunders from the left. Important for the Rays hitters to stay disciplined and patient.
Out to second base, and Franklin picks up the ground ball. Escobar is out number 2.
The one thing that this lineup knows going to bat against Saunders, that he is not going to be able to outstuff us. So what he wants to do is just get you leaning back and forth, change speeds, miss the barrel of the bat is what he's trying to accomplish. And that's why it's going to be so important for these Rays hitters to stay patient, wait for their pitch. They're able to do that, and after a while, it finally got to Harang.
First pitch to Jason Bourgeois is in there for a strike. Delivered the game winner for the Rays last night, and based on a 3-for-4 career matchup against the left-hander Saunders. He's in there again tonight. Here is the big hit for Bourgeois on the Rays last night. His second career walk-off hit.
Well, he said it best. He said, what other scenario would you want yourself in? Bases loaded, nobody out, and all I'm thinking about is getting a pitch to drive. Mission accomplished.
He's having a good year at Durham, hitting .291 there. Got the call when Desmond Jennings suffered that fractured middle finger. So that got Bourgeois back to the big leagues. And he draws the walk. So he'll go to first with speed and 2 outs.
Well, and for a left-hander, Saunders posing base stealers 11 out of 14. He does have 1 pickoff, but you see right here if Bourgeois decides to test him, 2 outs.
And he has had better rates than that earlier in his career. James Loney will be the hitter. Bourgeois sets up for the lead. Fastball is too high.
Well, with left-handed pitchers, if they've got a great pickoff move, a lot of guys are going to be flat-footed as soon as they get over to first base. But if they don't, then it becomes time to home plate because you're going off first move. It doesn't matter if they're looking at you or not. And if it continues with the leg kick, then it's just it's a mathematical equation.
Up the left side, that ball will slice toward the line and is just foul. Loney making a bid for an extra base hit, and with Bourgeois' speed, this could have been a tie game in a hurry.
You see how close it is. I mean, maybe a foot and a half.
Bourgeois, first base. We mentioned last night he, as a kid, played baseball with Carl Crawford and Michael Bourne over in Houston growing up. That's great speed in that little league. Didn't they? How about those 3 guys?
I'm going to turn them all into cornerbacks and safeties. Now, imagine playing pickle in the middle with those 3 guys.
Oh, man.
Forget it.
Put those guys in an outfield, try to get one in.
Yeah, right. Good luck.
Over to first, and Bourgeois back in. Yeah, Michael Bourne's dad had a team, kind of a traveling team he put together, and he had 3 pretty good speedsters right there on that team. Two balls, 2 strikes now. So Loney in this lineup against the lefty. Rays have stacked this lineup with essentially right-handed hitters except for Loney and Fold, and Loney's hitting .333 against lefties. Sam Fold .366. So that's why those 2 left-handed bats would be in there. Bourgeois has walked with 2 outs.
I think Loney, what he's shown with his approach, especially against lefties, willing to take the ball the other way, no surprise at all. But what Sam Fold has done against lefties this year.
A high fly ball into right. Saunders camped under it. He's got it, retiring the Rays. We go to the 3rd. It is 1-0 Seattle. In the 2nd, Rays have an exciting new ticket offer. Purchase 4 or more full price tickets to any game on RaysBaseball.com and receive 10% off. This offer applies to any seating category and is available online only. Some restrictions apply, so grab your friends and save. For tickets and more information, visit RaysBaseball.com. Alex Cobb making the start tonight for the Rays. The idea is to have him throw in the neighborhood of 90 pitches. He made 14 in the 1st and 20 in the 2nd inning, up to 34 pitches. And here's Dustin Ackley leading off. Pitch is a strike.
Those 90 pitches, depending on Seattle and how aggressive they are and how efficient Alex Cobb is, you'd love to get him through 6 innings. That would be ideal.
One ball, 1 strike. Chopper handled by Longoria. His throw to first, and plenty of time to retire Ackley. 60 days, 50 games missed for Cobb while he was on the disabled list. Rays managed to go 31-19 in that stretch. They'll get Cobb back. We'll have to wait and see on Matt Moore. Henry Blanco bounds it deep down the left side. It's well out of play. And a nice catch right there. Converts into a souvenir.
Over the head, too. Bare hand over the head. A shot by Blanco. Well done.
Ground ball. Glove by Longoria. 2 gone. Yeah, this is a little throwback to days before they wore gloves.
Yeah. This ball was hit hard, too.
Good form.
Fundamentally sound. Eye on the ball. Watch it right into the hands. Now already in discussions.
Receiving calls already.
Ready to put out a video. Baseball Fundamentals 101.
Now Brad Miller. It's fouled back. You know the best thing about that foul ball caught by him? Right here. How great is that?
Hero.
That's the best moment of all. Top shot down to second. Zobrist takes care of that. 3 ground ball outs. We go to the Rays half of the third. 1-0 Seattle.
Far has gone through 3 innings, allowing just 1 hit. Mariners lead 1-0 on that 1 hit. It was a Raul Ibanez home run. How about this, guys? 2014, we're going to have instant replay expansion where each manager gets a challenge in the first 6 innings. 2 challenges from inning 7 and beyond. If the challenge is won, they will retain that challenge. All plays reviewable. And our text poll question tonight brought to you by AT&T. Our Twitter poll question, I should say. Do you like expanded replay? Hashtag TB1, you're in favor of it. Hashtag TB2, you're not in favor of it. Tweet your votes to @SunSportsRays. We have former big league umpire Jim McKean with us, who lives in the area, kind enough to join us. 29.5 seasons worth of calling balls and strikes and plays on the bases. Jimmy, what are your thoughts about the new instant replay rules?
Well, one of the quick thought is I could probably umpire for another 15 years. Now that we got instant replay, I don't have to get them right anymore. It's going to be very interesting. I think it's good. I think any way we can improve the game, I think that would help. Now, I haven't read everything, and everything really hasn't come out, so I couldn't see everything exact. I saw a couple of things that are a little skeptical, and we talked about live balls.
Yeah.
That's going to be a huge problem where you place runners when you reverse a call. And there's so many things with when reversing a call is, does a runner fall down? Did they put a runner in for speed to try and score him? And we can't score him because the rules have changed. And all that's going to be very difficult to do. I know they're going to work it out. The thing that scares me, I wish they would have done it just a little bit at a time instead of throwing everything right off the wall in 2014 and going with it. And I'm not too excited. I don't know how this is going to work about a manager throwing a red flag out in the field. I just don't know why. I just don't think. I've seen that in baseball before, but I'm not sure I'm going to like that. And we'll see what happens. Do you have umpires looking in New York at the plays and relaying back? There's a lot to worry about. And the one thing that I really would not like is the gamesmanship. If we get gamesmanship in there where, they're keeping their challenges and throwing them to get a pitcher warmed up and stuff like that, that's a big problem. And that's the things they're going to have to work out. I know they're going to go to the Arizona Fall League, and they're going to try it out there and see what happens. But the Arizona Fall League isn't the big leagues.
Jose Lobaton walks to lead this inning off, bottom half of the third. Jim, take us through one of those scenarios that you're kind of describing that could cause problems when trying to place runners in a live ball situation.
Well, a situation would be if there's a trap ball in center field and the umpire calls an out and the bases are loaded, and he actually didn't catch the ball, and we look at the replay, it bounced. Now we got to place all these runners had he not caught the ball, which he didn't. Now, say Joe Madden puts in a pinch runner at first base, a real fast guy, and, he might have scored on the play. We're not sure. Do we score him? Do we not score him? And that's going to be the difficult part. And you know as well as I do, Todd, just in the last couple of games, there's been guys falling down, overrunning the bases. Guy could go from second to third, fall down. Maybe he would have been out. Where do we place him? It's not going to be as easy as everybody thinks. And one of the big things that you brought up to me, and I didn't even notice this, is if they get their challenge correct, they keep it. Now, to me, that's 25 challenges a game. We're going to be here till midnight, and you'll be getting paid overtime. That's what's going to happen.
Do you think it's going to take away the banter, the what we've gotten used to over the years of the manager and umpire arguments?
Todd, that's a great question, because arguing with the managers and the players and the umpires is a big part of this game, and the fans like it. It's pretty exciting for everybody, and our game is moving slow enough as it is. And as well as I do, we've seen Joe Madden go out there and other managers and get into an argument with an umpire. And as he comes off, he gets a standing ovation. And people are actually standing, and it's exciting. It's part of the game. I'd hate to see it cloned. And this is the way we're going. Replay could slow the game down. I hope it doesn't. There's one more point that we could have is the weather conditions. In the ninth inning, they throw a flag on a play because they've got it and it's snowing. And the Rays are winning 2-1 against the Yankees, snowing in October, whatever. And, we go look at the replay for 90 seconds and come back and the field's full of snow.
There you go. That's another angle.
Yeah,
that goes in the gamesmanship you were talking about earlier.
Which I wouldn't like to see.
Well, Sam Fold grounds into a fielder's choice. Guys, there are a lot of issues with the new potential expanded replays for 2014. We're kind enough to have one of the great voices of reason who was behind the plate for all those years in the big leagues, Jim McKeon. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with Jim right down the line. I'm ready to nominate him for the next commissioner. Commissioner Selig's thinking about retiring. Jim is well-spoken there, well thought out, and I just agree with almost everything he said.
That's because we went over every one of those scenarios up here about an hour ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's going to kill you, are the live ball situations. He brought up the one where, you see right here, they got Sam in trouble.
And the throw back to first gets away, and he's back in there safely. Boy, that was quite a stop by Blanco, and they had him dead to rights had he not pulled up.
Yeah, well, that was the key. Pull up, and that ball had to travel a long way from Blanco all the way out to second base before they could then try to get behind him. Right here, Sam goes. The throw travel a long way. That gives him time to get started back towards first. And he just does get in.
Sam aboard on the fielder's choice with 1 out, 1-0 to Sean Rodriguez.
The other thing, too, Dwayne, about it gives you freebies. It gives you freebies.
Absolutely.
If I'm an umpire or if I'm a manager and it's after the 7th inning, and I'll say I'm winning 6-4 or 5-4. I'm sitting on the bench. They steal second base, trying to get back in the game. Well, every play at second base, throw down, a tag as a guy sliding in, those are bang, bang plays. I'm sitting on 2 challenges. I got the lead. Why not challenge it? Just for the sake of challenging it. You're going to get a lot of that back and forth all the time.
Hopper back at first. That ball's going to be fair. Just inside the line, and down to second goes Full. Rodriguez has himself a base hit. That's the first hit of the game for the Rays. And the Rays have a little something brewing here in the third. You know, we hear for years, you can't make a travesty of the game by the things you do and the way you play it, the way you apply the rules of the game and strategy of the game. That's exactly what could happen here.
Yeah. It's not. It's going to go beyond and become a part of the game that you're going to have to study. You know, he was talking about the trap that wasn't a trap, but where do you place runners?
Yeah.
Well, let's say this one. Let's say there's 1 out, runners on first and second, low liner to center fielder. The guy comes in, makes a scoop catch. The second base umpire calls safe, so the runners move up. And the guy said, "Wait a minute, no, I caught it." He continues to run in, steps on second. Let's review it. Well, they go back to the review. Oh, he did catch it.
Yep.
So that's an out. Well, the runners did move up because the second base umpire had signaled safe. You know, and if you then say, well, no, those runners would be allowed to go back. Well, but why? Why couldn't he have thrown behind them if they were halfway?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, to me, depending on how, I don't know. I don't
not
see
good.
it doesn't. It certainly
is
look good.
not good
At all.
1-1 to count to Will Myers. And here's the other thing. Like he said, 3 challenges would be enough, but if you win, you can just keep doing it. Way out of line.
Because if you're going to lose a game, why would you ever hold on to a challenge?
Yeah.
You would use all of them. You'd find scenario. I mean,
and here's the other thing about this. Umpire's probably not going to say this. Is the umpiring so bad that we have to have all of these challenges? The answer is no. These guys are professionals, and they're not going to necessarily take affront to this, maybe, but you can see how they might. These guys are professionals.
Yes, and you are not going. Wait, listen, that's the way of the world. We want everything to be absolutely perfect, everybody covered. That's not reality. And so where you do review the play, whether it was a trap or not, okay, let's say that you get that right. That's great. Well, now you again, like we talked about. Now you've got to place the runners.
Yeah.
So who's going to see? Any way you look at it, there's going to be judgment put into play. Whether it's on the actual catch, where to put runners, they move up, how fast are they? I mean,
Ground ball through the hole by Myers. Fold around third. He's headed to the plate. Will score. Throw to third. Safe there. And into second goes Myers. This game is tied at 1. Will Myers comes through. Full scoring from second, and the Rays come out of that with 2 men in scoring position and a run.
Will Myers, this ball out over the plate. He hammers this in the hole. And with the throw to third, Sean Rodriguez aggressively going first to third. And Will Myers, seeing that throw from Ibanez over to Seager to try to make a play on Rodriguez, wisely moves up to second. And thank goodness the Rays getting something going here so they can take us off the conversation of the idiocy of this replay.
Here's Evan Longoria. Rays to the rescue again. 1 ball and no strikes to Evan. Tie game now. Yeah, it's way over the top. Yeah, I just can't see him doing this to the game. 1 ball, no strikes.
Go Rays.
Pitch popping away from Blanco inside, and it's a 2-0 count. The walk to Lobatone started it. Full reach down a fielder's choice. Sean Rodriguez dropped the base hit up the right field line, and then Myers singled into left, giving the Rays their first run, setting up 2 men in scoring position for Longoria. On the corner. Evan came into this game 1 of 5 lifetime against Saunders. That hit is a home run. Chance to give the Rays the lead in the bottom of the third. Down to third. Gregoria's out at first. Seager and Rodriguez playing a little cat and mouse game there for a moment.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm sorry, but that's funny. Kyle Seager makes a play on this, and he goes to a full arm fake. Who is he going to throw it to? This is great. He arm fakes right at Sean Rodriguez. who is that? Who is that throw going to? I mean, I like the idea. That's outstanding. Wait, look you back, pump fake you, and then go to first. That's well done, I guess.
It was Vince Zobrist.
That's a quick Henry Blanco filling in the back door.
Hey, I'm throwing the flag on that one.
Illegal use of a pump fake.
One ball, no strikes to Ben. He's going, hey, what was I doing there?
It worked.
2-0. Seattle got their run in the second. The Rays have a run in the third. Zobrist up in the count. And down he goes, fouling this one.
He hammered that ball off that front leg. Maybe the back leg. The back knee.
Oh.
That's not easy to do. Guys wear those protective devices on that front leg around the ankle area, but to get them outside of the back knee.
Two-one. He fouls this one in front of Tom Foley. He's facing Joe Saunders, 32-year-old left-hander. It's his third start in his career against the Rays. He's 0-2 against them. He's .759 earned on average. Coming into this one against the Rays. Pretty close right there, and Zobrist takes it for ball 3.
Saunders locked up Ben on that pitch, but just a hair off.
That's ball 4 popping away from Blanco. So Zobrist goes to first. That loads the bases for Yunel Escobar. Well, Escobar has had some success against Saunders. 4 of 9 coming into the game in his career off this lefty. Grounded out to second his first time. So a nice opportunity for the Rays if they can do it with 2 outs in the third. One. They start him with a curveball. This one is down. 2-0.
Well, and I think that, Saunders obviously finds himself in a tough spot here. A rough inning so far. Bases loaded. Those first 2 pitches, both off speed, both field pitches, and that's exactly how he threw them. Didn't cut him loose. Kind of hung the curveball in there out of the zone. That was a changeup that was babied. And now he finds himself in a bad 2-0 count against a guy, like you said, Dwayne's got a lot of success against him.
Stayed away from the fastball on the first 2 pitches. Now he's behind him. pitch is popped up, stayed away again, off speed. And Miller in shallow center out from shortstop makes the catch. The Rays will leave him loaded. They score the tying run. On to the fourth we go. The field, just a reminder that you enjoy a cold one to look forward to. Miller time later in tonight's game, brought to you by Miller Lite. Alex Cobb on the hill, back after an absence of 2 months to the day when he was struck on the right ear by a line drive off the bat of Kansas City's Eric Hosmer. 41 pitches so far for Alex Cobb through 3. And Nick Franklin leads off. This pitch is a strike. Some young infielders on this Seattle club with Miller at short, Franklin at second. Seager is settled in at third. It's a ball and 2 strikes. So they're playing them every day. Miller and Franklin. Seager's the guy they project as the heart and soul of this lineup in the future. High throw down, but they complete the strikeout of Franklin. Out on strikes for the second time. He has been strikeout prone the last few weeks.
Well, down in the count, Alex Cobb takes full advantage with this breaking ball. And I mean, spikes this right on top of the plate. Good block there by Lobaton. But anytime you're clearing to the inside and throwing back to arm side, the ball can sometimes sail, and that definitely ended up the upper reaches of James Loney's reach.
There's Kyle Seager. It's a strike.
Now, and if you wondered how sharp Alex Cobb was going to be after all of the time off and just 3 rehab, well, basically 2 rehab starts, very.
2 change up right there.
And I think that Alex, if his outing ended right now, he would tell you, I'm not very happy with my changeup. Has not had the normal action that he gets usually, but the change of speed has been good enough. But he'll tell you, not real happy with that pitch, but the fastball location, command, and the curveball have been very good.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Three strikeouts for Cobb. Giving up the 1 hit. That was the home run by Raul Ibanez. It's the only base runner he's given up. Two and two. Cut and a miss. He strikes him out. Fastball registers the 4th strikeout of the night.
Well, nothing fancy here. Just 91 inner half and Seager underneath it. Well, had some late action. Started on the inside corner. A little bit of run. Out to 2.
It's a 2 up, 2 down. 7 in a row, retired since the Ibanez home run. There's Kendrys Morales. Chops it to the left side. Escobar over there by himself. Barehanded pickup and throw, and it's not going to be in time with the shift on Escobar, the lone defender. And Morales has an infield hit against the shift.
Morales chops that ball the other way and chops it slowly. That forces a long run and a bare hand chance by Escobar. Just not quick enough.
So Morales is aboard. And Raul Ibanez got ahead in the count 3-1 and hit a fastball into the seats. His 25th home run of the year. Fouls it. 41 years old. 25 home runs for Ibanez. Did. He went. The count was 2 strikes. Soft little looping liner and a nice grab right there up the middle. That's Longoria making the catch out of the shift to get Ibanez. Bottom of the 4th coming, 1-1 tie.
Bay coming up a week from Saturday. It's the special mystery. Tell us about the mystery ball. Allison Shelton here. Allie Shelton, the wife of Derek Shelton, the hitting coach. What's going on next weekend?
Well, it's our annual mystery ball. It's the third year doing it. And what we do is we have everybody on the Rays staff sign a ball. Plus, any team that we have played this year, we have the big names from each of those teams sign balls. We wrap them up, and then they go for sale, and it's a mystery who you get. They're $40 a ball, and all the proceeds go to All Children's Hospital.
That's awesome. All Children's Hospital is a great organization. Obviously, you can see, or you saw a moment ago behind us, some of the hardworking wives and girlfriends behind here. You guys have been at it the whole game, huh?
Yes, we want to knock it out fast because we have so many this year because we seem to sell out fast every year. So we're always like, we need more. And then we also do the auction right outside of 106,
right,
where we have all the crazy items that you don't normally get from players.
Nice. So something you may not ever see again available to the public.
Right. Like we have a whole golf bag and shoes and towels signed by one of the players. We have an Adirondack chair signed by all the pitching staff. Just unique items, shoes, game, base, stuff, not just jerseys and balls, it's all kinds of stuff.
So when the fans show up on Saturday, where do they find you guys?
At 5:10, gates open, and we will be at gates 1 and 5. So we'll start selling at 5:10, and 2 years ago we sold out, so.
There you go. And it's next Saturday, a week from Saturday. Some of the names, guys: Buster Posey, Carl Crawford, Paul Goldschmidt, R.A. Dickey, Robinson Cano, Manny Machado, Yasiel Puig, Dustin Pedroia. You got all the big names. David Ortiz.
Yes, and I'm glad you said the Puig one because they said you have to say that, and I had no idea how to pronounce it. So
we can't let you go without saying happy birthday. Your husband said to make sure you tell Allie happy birthday.
Thank you. It's Giselle Rodriguez's birthday also.
Wow. Well, how about that?
We have all kinds of cupcakes and goodies.
We got all kinds of cupcakes. You might not see me for a couple of hours, guys, but don't forget Mystery Ball a week from Saturday. Allie, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, back to you.
All right, Todd, thank you very much. 3-2, Bourgeois lifts the fly ball into right. Saunders is there to catch it. Todd's right. We may not see him for a while.
Yeah, I mean, last night it was the sorority, and tonight it's the players' wives.
Yeah.
Come on, Callis.
That's how he rolls. Closing the door.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh, yeah, now he heard us. Yeah. Yeah. Derek Shelton goes, what's Todd doing up there?
He's trying to scrape out a couple more runs, and Todd's shutting the door behind him.
That's right. Going for a cupcake.
Or two.
James Loney. 1 ball, no strikes. Loney lifted a fly ball into right his first time. And to third this time, and it's scooped by Seager. The throw to first. 2 up and 2 down. Each team with a run, each team with 2 hits. Jose Lobaton about to step in. Lobaton walked in the third when the Rays scored, and they also left the bases loaded in that inning. Meanwhile, Boston and Toronto, bottom of the 4th inning at Toronto, 1-0 Boston. A low liner there on the short hop, grabbed by Seager, and he throws out Lobaton. We're through 4, tied 1-1. 1-4. Time for the Just for Men mustache and beard play like a champ profile. Well, the Orioles have been unbelievable defensively, and so have the Rays this year. Just 36 errors for Baltimore, 43 for the Rays. That's the fewest errors after 118 games in Major League history. You see the Red Sox in 06 had 43, and the Mariners in 03 had 44. The Rays outstanding defensively, and there's some of that great defense out of first baseman James Loney.
Well, and you knew that coming in. You knew that he was a tremendous defender. Fits in with what the Rays like to do here. That's pitching and defense. And when you get him at first base and you look around that infield, the work that Ben Zobrist has done at second base, and then, of course, the left side with Escobar Longoria, locked down defense on the infield.
Justin Smoke leads off. The first baseman takes that pitch down a bit. 1 ball, no strikes. The Rays have the shift on. In fact, Zobrist is in short right field for Smoke.
Now we're here with nobody on, nobody out. It's easy. You give Ben Zobrist a little bit of room to play with. Now the Rays will switch it up. That's Evan Longoria now headed over to the right side of second base. Escobar back to short.
Big cut and a miss by Smoke. 2-1. Smoke hit the ball into the shift in the second inning. And Zobrist threw him out. Slice out of play. 2-2. Matt Joyce putting the caution tape on Will Myers' bat.
Yeah, right. I mean, that is caution to any pitcher. Don't throw it to the yellow tape. The ball comes off hot.
3-2, lined into right, and right there is Sean Rodriguez. Perfect positioning again. 1 away in the 5th. Michael Saunders. Saunders struck out his first time up there tonight. Came in with 10 home runs, 38 runs batted in, hitting .226 right now. Bounces back. He had 19 home runs last year for the Mariners. Saunders 26 years old, and they were hoping that that 19 home run total would be the beginning of a breakout in his career as an offensive player. 1-1. He could be a very important part of the Seattle outfield.
Yeah, there are a lot of could-be's on the Seattle ball club. Offensively, even within the pitching staff, a lot of talented youngsters coming up on the horizon as far as starting pitching goes.
Yeah, they really like the future of their club in terms of pitching.
But it has been that offense that they are continuing to look for. I mean, you talk about Saunders, Smoke, and what he's done his last 47, 48 games.
And Saunders out on strikes. Chased the curveball down. That's strikeout number 5. 2 gone in the 5th inning. Well, they're going to have some decisions to make. You mentioned the young talent they have. But are they going to sign Morales? He's the middle of their lineup right now.
Yeah.
Ibanez at 41. He's having a great year, but it's really a year-to-year proposition there. Dustin Ackley. 1 ball, no strikes. Ackley playing center field recently. Count is 1-1. It's his 24th start in center field there. 16-7 since he started in center field. 1 ball, 2 strikes. He spent some time at Tacoma. Base is empty with 2 gone. Too high. 2-2. Run, 2 hits for Seattle. A run, 2 hits for the Rays tonight. Up the left side, slicing, and a fair ball. 1 hop and into the stands. That'll be an opposite field double. Ackley got that one just fair inside the line. That had some slice to it. We'll take another look. Wow. Looks like a foul ball.
Toss the flag.
Yep, need a flag. So Ackley gets a double on what the replay shows us was a foul ball. Who could be against all of those flags?
And where do you keep it? I think you go. You got to go Belichick style and put it down. Joe Madden already wears the hoodie.
Yep.
So you go with you go with the flag down on the sock, right where it's at. And here's the thing: do you fire it out on the field, or you just drop it over the side and motion towards it?
A little weight on the bottom. Fire it out.
Well, that cost Lomas Brown eyesight in that one eye.
Blocked here by Lobaton. 2-1.
Yeah, sorry, not Lomas Brown, Orlando Brown of the Cleveland Browns, thrown by Jeff Triplett. Aggressive.
Well, we can't do that.
No.
Still don't like the idea.
No, well, you know what? And thankfully that little mini rally by the Rays, because we could have gone on and on with scenario after scenario that are going to have to be ironed out. And by the way, this is 2 guys spitballing over dinner.
Yeah.
Wait till reality hits, and all of the listen. That's the thing about baseball. There are so many moving parts and variables, base runners. Guys in motion. There's so much going on that when live balls are challenged, it will be a nightmare scenario. I promise you that.
And there's ball 4 to Blanco. Well, the other thing it's going to do potentially is extend the running time of a game.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the call that we just saw, that's an easy challenge. Foul ball, 2 outs, nobody on, go back and hit. I get it. That's great.
Yep.
It's when that call, they rule that ball foul, and it's actually fair, and there's runners on. Now, what do you do with them? Let's say it hits the wall, stays in play. They've called it foul, so everybody's pulled up, but yet it was fair. Now where do you put everybody? I mean, that's where it becomes the nightmare scenarios. And that's where, once again, maybe not the judgment of fair or foul has been called into play, but now the judgment of where to put. Either way, there's going to be judgment on a lot of these replays.
Well, you don't want to be judgmental.
Someone's going to have to be.
Well, now Brad Miller with runners at first and second. Yeah, there'll be a lot of conversation about that going forward. Into the dirt, and a nice stop by Lobaton on the opening changeup. Ball 1.
And Lobaton with a grimace there. You wonder if that ball in the dirt caught that throwing hand. Taking a little bit of time. You can see right there something's not feeling very good. Did. Caught him right on that open, bare hand.
Lobatone to get the proper feeling back into his right hand, doubling up that fist. A 1-ball count to Brad Miller. Turns away from it inside, 2-0. There's a strike. They got Smoke and Saunders. Then Ackley doubled up the left field line. Walked Blanco, the number 9 hitter, and now top of the order. 2-1 to Miller. Even the count. 2-2. See Miller when he gets ready to hit. He steps in. He'll take that bat in the left hand there, and then when the pitcher's ready, he puts the bottom hand on the bat. Thinks that helps him to stay back. So the bat tended to drift toward the middle of his body, and he keeps it back there, and not until he thinks the pitcher is at a certain point in his process will he put both hands on the handle of that bat.
And these are the things that typically are not taught. When you go through a feeling out process of what works for you, it may have been suggested. But each hitter, each pitcher has his little keys to be mechanically sound.
That's low, blocked again by Lobatone, and the count is full. He also thought that if he put both hands on the handle of that bat too soon, almost like a runner tensing up at first base with a lead, that his grip got a little tense up there, and this helps prevent that.
Yeah, you could definitely see that. You start to choke that bat, try to turn the handle into sawdust. That's not going to help anybody. In fact, you see a lot of hitters almost let that bat roll in those hands until the pitch is on its way. Then, they start to come through with their swing, and those hands take control of the bat. But yeah, just like a pitcher muscling up on a pitch, a hitter, you don't want to be muscling up on the bat too early either.
There he goes. And to stay loose. 3-2 with 2 men on and 2 outs. Runners take off, and ball 4. So Miller walks to load the bases. So this comes with 2 outs, a bases loaded situation now. Alex Torres is up in the Rays bullpen.
Well, you talked about, Dwayne, the Rays and Alex Cobb and wanting to get him up near 90 pitches or so, stuck at 82 in a little bit of trouble. In that 5th inning, he was on a pretty good pace there, but
yeah, he'd made only 55 pitches through 4.
And you were hoping you could get him through 6. That looked like a distinct possibility. Maybe not now. Get him through 5 unscathed from here on out.
Nick Franklin fouls it. Strike 1. Twice tonight, Franklin has struck out on a breaking ball. Foul back. Now in curveball, fastball, 0-2.
And after going after that fastball right there, that was at the top of the strike zone. You may want to keep an eye out for that curveball coming right back once again.
This will be the 30th pitch of the inning. And he goes up.
And that's not a bad pitch right there by Alex Cobb. They wanted that ball in. and didn't get in, and it stayed up above the zone. But in an 0-2 count, that's fine because you've just changed the eye level of the hitter, and now you can come back with the split or the curveball. Whatever you've got a better feel for, up to you. But you've got to set him up 3-1.
1-2, and the changeup is a ball. It's 2-2.
And that's why I think you've seen Alex tonight more with the curveball than the changeup, because that split change has been inconsistent. We've seen some very good ones. We've seen some ones sail on them. We've seen a couple that have cut on them a little bit.
Big pitch right here, 2-2 to Franklin. Bases loaded. And we go all the way out. This is the 4th 3-ball count of the inning and the 3rd consecutive 3-ball count. He went 3-1, walked Blanco, 3-2, walked Miller. He's 3-2 to Franklin with the bases loaded behind him. And he strikes him out. He got him with a changeup, a pitch that had been a little elusive for him tonight. He strikes out Franklin for the 3rd time. We're still tied 1-1. Nick Franklin, our Volkswagen pitching performance tonight for Alex Cobb. First time back in 2 months.
Yeah, and I think Alex is going to be thrilled with his performance. He gave him that 1 home run to Raul Ibanez on a fastball out over the plate, but I thought that overall his night, the fastball command was very good for the most part. I thought the curveball was a very good pitch for him tonight. The changeup just a little bit elusive, and you saw that in that last at bat with Nick Franklin. 1 and 2, he threw 3 straight changes, 2 not so good. The 3rd one in the full count, maybe the best of the game for him.
Bottom of the 5th underway. 1 ball, no strikes. The count to Sam Fold. Sam playing center field, making the start, hitting 9th. His 11th start of the year in center field. He's ahead of Joe Saunders, 2-0. John Rodriguez on deck, and then Will Myers. Sam reached on a fielder's choice in the 3rd. Came around to score. Two, and a base hit up the middle. He had Saunders ducking. And Fold is aboard to lead off the inning. Saunders still on his knees on the front side of the mound.
Breaking ball out over the plate, and in a night that features the return of Alex Cobb, you get that.
So a close call there for Joe Saunders. Of course, Alex Cobb knows all about that all too well. Saunders collects himself a bit with Bull now at first. And in steps Sean Rodriguez. Rays left the bases loaded in the third when they scored a run. Seattle left the bases loaded in the top half of this inning. Ball, no strikes. Rodriguez part of the third inning that saw the Rays score when he dropped a base hit inside the right field line back of first. He's ahead in the count, laying off the off-speed pitch, 2-0. Cut up the fastball. 2 balls and a strike. Saunders out of Virginia Tech. It's his 9th major league season. Rodriguez is ahead in the count, 3-1.
Well, this could loom large for the Rays. A great opportunity here. The leadoff base hit by the number 9 hole hitter. Top of the lineup, back up here for the 3rd time, and a perfect count to work with for Sean Rodriguez.
And a big cut and a foul ball off the changeup. So it's a full count now. Saunders coming off an outing against Milwaukee. He pitched 4 1/3, gave up 9 runs, but only 4 of those were earned on 7 hits. And Rodriguez fouls a fastball. Came in 3-2 fastball. A big cut, but Sean fouled it. Ball again. Saunders has made 24 starts coming into this game and has figured in the decision in 21 of those. 10 and 11 coming into this game. Lost 3 out of his last 4 after getting over 500 at 9 and 8. Now 10 and 11. Well, it will be at least a 9 pitch at bat for Sean Rodriguez after fouling that one away.
Well, he's fouled off just about everything that Saunders has to offer. The changeup, the slider, a fastball. Getting a pretty good look here.
Three-two, popped into shallow center. Franklin angling out. That ball's going to drop. Little confusion between Franklin and Miller, and the Rays have 2 men on with nobody out. Bull taking second.
Now, we talked coming into this series that the Mariners had struggled defensively, especially up the middle with Franklin and Miller. And here, while no error, definitely a play that needs to be made. Just a simple pop-up there by Sean Rodriguez. Got to be caught, but no communication.
Robbie Thompson, the acting manager, still trying to make some decisions on positions for players out there. He's had Franklin at second and Miller at short. Was also toyed with the idea of alternating those two at second base when he plays Brendan Ryan at shortstop. He'd like them to have the opportunity to play alongside the veteran shortstop who's so good. Will Myers takes the pitch too low.
I mean, these two, with Miller and Franklin, they have started there together, well, I guess 31 times now. 31 times total. But those are just, that right there is just a typical baseball play. I don't care if that's your first game out there. Those have to be taken charge of and caught. And if not, well, you talk about opening the door up for the Rays when they need to take full advantage. Now first and second, nobody out, and the heart of the order coming up.
Well, that miscommunication there, similar to the kind of plays that you see teams make in young players. They've, based on decisions, they've attempted to make plays where they'd be better off not attempting at times. This pitch is down, 2 balls and a strike. And I think Thompson's thinking on that, to have Ryan out there with them to help them get a feel for those situations. Sometimes younger players try to make every play they can make that way. That time they were not aggressive enough.
No, I mean, about as routine as you'll get. A huge opportunity for Tampa Bay.
And a liner up the left field side off the bat of Myers. Full will score. Rodriguez will be waved home. He will score. Into second, Myers. And the Rays come up with 2 to take a 3-1 lead. Will Myers has driven in all 3 runs for the Rays.
Now he's able to stay back enough, elongate that swing, and get this ball right down the line into the corner. Sam Folt's going to score, of course, but Sean Rodriguez, with a great read coming off of first base, scores easily, and the Rays do take advantage and looking for more.
Evan Longoria. He swings and hits one deep to left. Ibanez looking up, and it's gone. Longoria hits a breaking ball out. Rays make it a big inning. Longoria belting his 23rd home run of the year.
Now just a spinner that gets absolutely destroyed. Middle of the plate. No depth, very little break. 2-run blast.
Evan last night was on 4 times, 2 walks and 2 doubles. Hits a home run tonight, a 2-run shot. And the Rays lead 5-1. Just like that, they got the break. They've turned it into a big inning. 4 runs home with nobody out. Longoria's second career hit in 8 at-bats against Saunders, and both those hits have been home runs. Now Ben Zobrist shortens on the bat, takes the pitch low. Brandon Moore is up in the bullpen down the left field line. balls, no strikes. Zobrist fouls this pitch. Rays taking advantage of the opportunity. The leadoff single by Fold. Right back past Joe Saunders. Rodriguez dropped a base hit in between Franklin and Miller on a ball that should have been caught. Now Zobrist lifts a fly ball into right. Michael Saunders there to catch it for the first out. Myers lined the 2-run double up the left field line, and then the home run followed on the very next pitch. Longoria hit one into the seats in left center.
Yeah, and how about the turnaround? You go from Seattle bases loaded and a full count strikeout by Alex Cobb, turn it right around in the bottom of the fifth, and Tampa Bay opens up first 4 guys to the plate score.
Now Yunel Escobar takes a curveball for a strike. Close with the fastball. 1-1. Saunders his last time out. We referenced that earlier against Milwaukee. The defense let him down. They committed 3 errors while he was in there in 4 innings plus. No errors charged in this game, but a big defensive mistake allowing that ball hit by Rodriguez to drop in.
And you say this, you say, well, you know, that ball, let's say he does catch it. Well, then Will Myers doubles in the corner and Longoria hits a home run anyway. So instead of 4 runs, they get 3. Well, you don't know that.
No.
Because if that ball gets caught, the whole sequence to Will Myers may change.
Yeah, you got a guy at first with 1 out.
Yeah, and you may go with a completely different set of pitches to him and then to Longoria. So you can't necessarily say just erase that and whatever happened after that would have happened the same way. You don't know that.
Full count. Saunders closing in on 100 pitches. Escobar fouls it, forcing another 3-2. 30 pitch inning. Only 1 out. Chopper up the middle. That will get through. Escobar has a base hit. The 5th hit of the inning. Robbie Thompson comes out of the dugout. Our Toyota trend for Evan Longoria. 3 for 6 with 3 extra base hits here in the last 2 games. Going to shake the last 39. That's very unlike Evan Longoria. The last 2 nights showing great signs. So pitching change coming for Seattle. Time for the Metro PCS call to the bullpen. at 98. Curveball in the mid-70s. Brandon Maurer will be the new pitcher. Jason Bourgeois 0 for 1. Shortens on the bat. Pitch is low. Escobar's at first. 1 away. Ten starts for Maurer. 4th out of the bullpen. One and one.
A little bit different change of pace here from Joe Saunders. The lefty, upper 80s, 90 miles an hour. Occasionally will hop over that by just a little bit. But 95 mile an hour fastball here by Maurer.
Runner goes, and Bourgeois fouls that one, reaching out with Escobar on the move.
Well, this is where Joe Madden likes to get aggressive when he's up with the lead. It's an aggressive team anyway on the base pass, but with the lead become even more so.
Hour ahead of Bourgeois. And the curveball got him after that heat, and then that 74-mile-per-hour curveball, tough to contend with.
And he really pulls the string, and with a good break, tight spin, and you see Bourgeois commit, and that ball just off the table. Cannot stay back long enough or be able to dictate that break.
Well, you see that curveball and the velocity, and you immediately know what the Mariners like about this guy. It's a matter of consistency and command for him. Loney swings through the fastball, strike one. Maurer was at Tacoma and went 3 and 4 in 10 starts there with a .521 earned run mark. Began the season in the Mariners rotation, was 2 and 7 in 10 starts with a .693 as a starting pitcher. 1-1. So if he can put some command to those pitches, the Mariners think they really have something. Moves away with a fastball. 2-1. Alex Torres was up in the bullpen in the top of the inning and gets up again. He was up after Zobrist hit the fly ball to right for the first out. The base hit by Escobar. Bourgeois now striking out. Loney fouls this one off his foot. The count is 2-2.
Well, he definitely has the assortment of pitches that you need for a starting pitcher. In fact, you see a lot of guys just, a fastball, breaking ball, off speed, changeup type pitch, but he's got the slider and the curveball to go along with the fastball, changeup. But you're right, consistency of command and also the idea of being able to move your pitches around enough, come up with different sequences enough to get hitters out 3 or 4 times in a given game. That's also something that a young pitcher needs to learn. At this level anyway. He's used to doing that in the minor leagues, but a little bit different up here with the video, the adjustment that these hitters are able to make.
Loney has just fouled the fastball. Came in at 96, holding the count at 2-2.
It's going to get to the point where you're going to see starting pitchers where that velocity starts about 92, 93 and up. Nothing below that. Doesn't seem like there's very many of those guys anymore at all.
It's amazing how at times it seems that those things go in cycles.
Yeah.
You'll go through a period of years where it's been quite a few years ago where if a guy threw 90, it was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a concern they couldn't find people to throw 90. Well, then everybody was throwing 90. Then everybody seemed to me was throwing 95.
I can remember talking with Mike Morgan, and he said when he broke into the game, he said if you had one or two guys coming out of the bullpen at 92, 93, that was smoke. You know, some of these bullpens now, they start at 95, and everybody's above that.
Look out. That has George Hendrick ducking. So George back up on 2 feet now. Take a look in the upper corner. Still 2-2 to Loney. Fouls it again. More hard stuff. Everything back to normal over there for George Hendrick. The 2-2 pitch again. Driven into center field. Ackley is there to make the catch. 8 men come to the plate. The Rays score 4. 2 on the double by Myers and 2 on this blast by Evan Longoria. 5-1 Rays. Innings tonight of 1-run baseball on 3 hits. He had 6 strikeouts. First time out in 2 months. Will Myers swinging the bat, driving in a run in the 3rd with a base hit. Devils home 2 more in the 5th. And Evan Longoria got Myers home with 1 swing of the bat on Evan's 23rd home run of the season. So Myers and Longoria showing some very positive signs here the last 2 nights. We go to the 6th inning with the Rays holding a 5-1 lead. Alex Torres will take over on the hill, replacing the right-hander Alex Cobb.
And the left-hander Alex Torres looking to get things back on track on that road trip. 2 appearances covering 3 1/3 innings. His gave up 5 earned runs. Only giving up 1 earned run to that point. The number's still tremendous across the board. 37 2/3 innings of
First pitch in to Kyle Seager. Lofted high, not very deep, but very high into center, and Sam Fole makes the catch. One pitch and one out. They get the number 3 hitter, and it brings up Kendrys Morales. Upstairs, Morales now hitting from the right side. 1 of 2 against Cobb. He had the infield hit against the shift. Lines it foul. It's going to be well foul out of play. It's 1-1. Balls and a strike. Alex Torres gave up a couple runs in an inning in the Sunday game against the Dodgers. For the longest, he was absolutely untouchable. Gave up 3 runs in 2 1/3 in the appearance he made in Arizona. Touch for a couple of outings there, giving up runs, proving that he is human after all. Boy, he had such a great run, an unbelievable run. Just forced his way into the picture out of the Rays bullpen, and now he walks Morales. So 1-out walk here in the 6th inning. It's almost time for the kids to go back to school. Not that one. Now they can be prepped with a Rays lunchbox given out when the Rays battle the Blue Jays this Sunday, August 18th. The lunchbox presented by Sweet Bay Supermarket to kids 14 and under while supplies last. Visit RaysBaseball.com for tickets.
That is genuine excitement, folks. Genuine excitement.
Raul Ibanez takes a strike. Yeah, those are timeless photos. We might have to get some of those and put them up in the booth.
I mean, with Todd Callis, it's a treasure trove when he is out wandering.
Swing and a miss. 0-2. Ibanez out in front.
You talk about the run that Alex Torres was on. I mean, it was pretty simple. Fastball, changeup. Tremendous with those 2 pitches. An occasional slider.
1 ball, 2 strikes.
But the one thing that he has shown us is that the arm speed on the changeup, I mean, second to none. There is absolutely no difference when he's going right. There is 0 difference. And in fact, at times it looks like that changeup he's trying to hump up on a fastball.
Now 2-2. Ibanez provided the Mariners with their run, but he hit number 25, a solo blast in the 2nd inning. Home run he had hit in over a month. And now a full count. Torres went 3-2 to Morales, walked him. He's 3-2 with Ibanez.
That's what hurt him on that road trip. In those 3 1/3 innings where he gave up the 5 earned runs, there were the 3 walks, 3 passes. That's something that he has been able to limit for the most part.
And he gets a visit from Jose Lobaton before they make the 3-2 to Ibanez. The last thing you want to do is walk people here and let Seattle counterpunch the Rays with a 4-run 5th, build a 5-1 lead.
And you want a team to have to earn it, to piece together an inning by swinging the bat, and have to put together 3-4 hits to get something done, not a couple of free passes in one swing.
Fouled well out of play up the right side. Blue Jays have scored a couple runs in the bottom of the 7th to take a 2-1 lead on the Red Sox. Swing and a miss. Ibanez missed the off-speed pitch. Big strikeout for Torres. 2 gone.
Well, enticing the veteran to go out of the zone on a changeup. This pitch right here, ball 4, but it was close enough that Ibanez in a full count, not going to let that go by, and he gets caught.
Justin Smoke batting right-handed now. He was 0 for 2 against Cobb. He fouls it. Change up. Smoke has had issues from the right side, but a little better this year, a little better overall, given the improved discipline at the plate. Foul ball takes the count to 0-2. Angels beat the Yankees today 8-4. A 2-strike count to Smoke. Up the middle, and right there is Zobrist to make the play, retiring Seattle in the 6th. Bottom of the inning coming, 5-1 Tampa Bay. Your Gulf Coast Honda dealers. Visit your Honda dealer for great lease and finance deals on fuel-efficient Hondas. And by the Tampa Bay Times. Amazing stories only in the 2013 Pulitzer Prize-winning Tampa Bay Times. Rays hold a 5-1 lead in the wrap-up game of the series with Seattle. Jose Lobaton takes the first pitch outside. Joe Saunders worked 4 1/3, gave up 5 runs. Brandon Maurer came on to finish up the 5th. And he starts the bottom of the 6th. Line drive. That's a foul ball down toward the bullpen. Jamie Wright now throwing in the Rays bullpen. Hot shot to first. Smoke makes the pickup and steps on the bag. One away. We'll get Sam Fold to the plate. Sam made the start against the left-hander Saunders. He's been an important part of this game for the Rays. Hitting out of the ninth spot, has scored 2 of the 5 runs. He opened that 4-run fifth with a base hit. One ball, no strikes. Up in the count.
Well, been pretty impressive with what the Rays have been able to do. You know, coming off that tough road trip, losing all 5 games, lose game 1 in this series, fall behind 4-1 in last night's game before coming back late, and then seemingly taking control of this game in the middle in what was a 1-1 game going into the 5th inning.
They get a lift from Alex Cobb coming back 5 innings, and Myers and Longoria getting key hits, including Evans' home run, his 23rd of the year. Myers 2 for 3 with 3 runs batted in. The count's going to go full on Sam. Ooh, strike 3 call. Sam trying to coax the walk, but he's caught looking there on a 3-2 slider. Reminder, fans, thanks to you, we've sold out the Papa John's bullpen box for the remainder of the 2013 season. To find out about other great group outings, however, here at Tropicana Field, contact Group Sales at 855-GROUP-TB or email groupsales@raysbaseball.com. One ball, no strikes. Fold has scored 2 runs. Rodriguez has scored a run. Myers 1 and Longoria 1. 2-1 the count to Sean Rodriguez. Foul back. 2-2. John with his 2 hits tonight, average up to 265, and is out on strikes. It's a 1-2-3 inning in the 6th. On to the 7th. 5-1 Tampa Bay.
for you guys at home tonight. What's 20 feet long, 115 pounds, and has rabbit on his dinner menu? Well, it's Asia, the python snake that Joe Madden brought into the clubhouse today before the game. You know, you thought you'd seen it all between the Penguins and the Cockatoo. No, you didn't. 20 feet of fear today. How about the rationale? Well, Madden said a snake is a risk taker and just fit into the Rays way. As you can see, mixed reviews around the clubhouse. A lot of players taking an early BP today, guys, especially Desmond Jennings. Big time phobia, and you can see him right there blocking Dez's locker. He couldn't believe it. He was freaking out, guys.
Asia.
You tell me what risk that python's taking. I don't think it needs to risk anything. Just make yourself seen and known. The only risk is anybody that gets around you.
The bouncing ball, first pitch from Jamie Wright, handled by Zobrist, and Michael Saunders is the first out. One pitch, one out. Let's take a look at that clubhouse situation with Asia the python, and you can see all the folks over there on one side and Desmond's on the other side. Now, who's the most intelligent person in that photo?
Whoever's on the other side
that
of
guy
Desmond.
right there. Yeah, I'm telling you.
Whoever snapped the shot.
Yeah, that's it. It was Ackley taking a pitch wide.
I'd be with Desmond. I have no time for snakes.
Wow.
Is that even a snake?
It's a big snake.
I mean, come on. 20 feet.
1-1 to count on Ackley. This one low. 2-1. Well, at 20 feet, that's one of the big ones as pythons go. They tell us it's one of the top 5 in the biggest in captivity among the top 5 pythons.
No kidding.
Yeah. Hey, if you're going to bring a python into the clubhouse, it's the big leagues. You got to do it right. Foul ball, 2-2. It's a big league python. Tomorrow's feeding day, by the way, for the snake. Maybe.
So they eat what once
Big
every
appetite.
2 weeks?
Yeah, once every 2 weeks.
Once every 2 weeks.
You save on meal money.
Truly.
Except for that one day every 2 weeks.
Yeah, they load up.
It's gone.
They load up.
3-2 to Ackley. Bourgeois in left. 2 gone.
Yeah,
Rays have had Penguins in the clubhouse. Which the Dodgers and the Cubs had one at one time. And now Parrots have a magician, DJs, salsa band, and python.
Plantains.
Oh yeah,
for Rodney.
Yeah,
hanging plantains.
Wow. Henry Blanco. Strike the count.
Oh, he just for me, stay away from snakes and spiders that have fur.
And if you're a rabbit, you should stay away from pythons. High foul ball down the right side, out of play. 2 strikes. In the middle of all this, we have breaking news.
Yes, Dwayne.
And Todd Callis is here to give us the latest. Todd?
Joe Madden said next homestand, guys, is going to be the best surprise of the year. He won't tell us what it is, but he did say Jeremy Hellickson gave him the idea for what that's worth.
Pretty interesting. This one is down. So Todd has the inside info that there's more to come on the next homestand in the Rays clubhouse. They can top the Python, apparently. One and two the count on Blanco. Rays broke a 1-1 tie with a 4-run fifth. We're in the top of the seventh. Jamie Wright following Cobb and Torres. And Blanco's out on strikes. Breaking pitch got him. 1-2-3 they go. Bottom of the seventh coming. 5-1 Rays. Walk down memory lane in the Rays clubhouse this year. Just a sampling of what you may run into. So far, Asia, the latest edition, 20-foot python. And apparently more to come.
Never a dull moment around this club. Ever.
Joe Myers, that's a strike. Bottom of the seventh underway.
Well, thank goodness that the next road trip is just a one-city trip.
Yeah,
we can get right back to that homestand and see what it's going to be.
Wouldn't you love to see Joe Madden's Rolodex?
No.
Oh, let's see. Let's file through here and see what we have next. Oh, look out. An 0-2 pitch, and Myers hit that pitch behind him. Wow.
Yeah, there may have been a little bit of purpose to that one. I don't know if that one is going to get away from Mauer that much. That ball ended up on the backside of Will Myers.
Now Myers at first. Yeah, anything in that territory, you're scratching your head.
You're not looking for the ball there.
Longoria. Pitch in. Ball, no strikes. Pitch is down. 2-0. knees, 2-1. Take the count to 2-2 to Evan. Toronto hitting in the bottom of the 8th, leading Boston 2-1. Oakland beat Houston today in Oakland 5-0. Popped into shallow center. In comes Ackley, and that's going to drop. Myers moves up to second base. Ackley, deep back there, had a long way to come and could not get there. Ball in the air a long time,
yeah,
though.
That's exactly right. And another one that you feel probably should have been caught, but no one gets there. You know, a blooper's one thing. A ball that's that high for that long.
So just like that, the Rays have another threat. 2 men on with nobody out. First pitch to Zobrist is in there for a strike.
Well, the Rays would like to do nothing more than add on right here and obviously get out of grand slam range. Up by 4.
Ball is low. 1-1. Rays have the Blue Jays coming in tomorrow night. They'll be in for the weekend. Rays will face the knuckleballer R.A. Dickey in the game tomorrow night. Jeremy Hellickson will pitch for the Rays. Hellickson, Hernandez, and Archer for the Rays over the weekend against the Blue Jays.
The Blue Jays giving the Red Sox fits right now. They have pitched them extremely well, especially the last couple of nights. They're one of those teams that were part of the poll yesterday. You're going to try to play spoiler down the stretch, and they'll have a lot to say with all the games they're going to play within the division.
2-2 curveball is fouled. Well, see how far this thing goes, but the Rays actually will close the regular season on the road in Toronto against the Blue Jays.
And that last trip, part of 20 straight to end the season.
Zobrist stays alive, fouling the fastball out of play. Yeah, a lot of interesting baseball to come. The Rays with Toronto in over the weekend, and that 3-game trip to Baltimore, and just like that, we get back home. The Yankees come in, the Angels. Then the Rays have one more long trip out west. Oakland, the Angels, and Seattle.
And regardless of who you're playing, those trips are always a challenge.
Ooh, that's ball 3, 95, full count.
Yeah, and Mauer, there was just a little bit of action on that pitch, taking it back towards the inside corner. This is close.
Just didn't quite get there. 3-2. Pop in the shallow left. Ibanez making the catch. First out of the 7th inning. Mauer's in relief of Joe Saunders, who gave up 5 runs in 4 1/3, including the 23rd home run of the year hit by Evan Longoria. So Escobar, who had a base hit in the 5th inning, giving him 1 for 3, bats with Myers at second and Longoria at first, and 1 out in the bottom of the 7th inning. All no strikes. Balls, no strikes. Bauer finds the zone. 2-1. Seattle will move on to play the Texas Rangers, and then they'll take on Oakland before they get back home. Base hit up the middle. Myers rounding third on his way to the plate. The Rays get their 6th run of the night on Escobar's base hit.
Well, that's the one thing that the Rays have done tonight is capitalize on Seattle mistakes. First of all, Mauer throws that ball, hits Will Myers, throws it almost behind him. The little bloop fly ball by Evan Longoria that drops in, and the Rays cash in once again with an Escobar base hit up the middle, and they do add on to that lead.
So the Rays have a 5-run advantage. Jason Bourgeois will be lifted for the pinch hitter Matt Joyce, with the right-hander Mauer on the hill.
Opportunity here for Joe Madden to get Matt Joyce another at-bat. He's been swinging the bat very well recently after going through a tough stretch.
2 hits and 2 runs scored last night, including an RBI single in the 9th to tie the game when he punched an 0-2 pitch through the middle of the drawn-in infield.
And so when you see you got a guy swinging a bat hot like that, you'd love to get him in the lineup, but the breakout on Saunders was so heavily favoring the right-handed hitter that you understand why Matt Joyce is not in the lineup. However, you get the opportunity to get him in there and keep him seeing live pitching and swinging. Here you go.
Yeah, that's an important part of managing that Joe Madden does a good job of, getting these guys at bats, because he's going to use that whole bench. As we know, the mix and match approach for the Rays, depending on pitchers and situations and ballparks and the type of pitcher.
You have got to keep guys fresh. You've got to keep them sharp. And that's the balancing act. That's why it's not called a head coach. That's why you're a manager. You're a manager of people, a manager of situations, a manager of your roster. There's a lot that goes into it.
Two balls, 2 strikes. Cut and a miss. So Matt Joyce missed the slider 2-2. And is out number 2. 4th strikeout for Mauer. Well, you can see again what they like about Mauer, and you can see the challenge he has. Great stuff. A lot of deep counts. He'll miss location, then he'll throw a great slider. Great velocity with the fastball. A lot of potential there.
You know, it'll be interesting to see with his continued development if they don't hone those breaking balls and try to give him just one. You know, maybe help the consistency. Sometimes it's tough for guys to be able to throw the curveball and the slider and to stay sharp with both of them. So maybe you go to one that's the best. That slider that he got Matt Joyce on, nasty pitch.
Yes, it was.
You go fastball, slider, changeup. There you go. You know, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over time.
1-0 the count to James Loney. It's fouled away.
And the thing is, you know, which one do you pick? Because you go back to the consistency. We've seen the nasty slider to Joyce that he put him away on, a couple other swings and misses on it, but then how about the curveball to Bourgeois that he got him on, 74 miles an hour. That's what you do like about that pitch, is the big, you know, velocity range that it gives you. You're going to go with mid-90s to mid-70s with the changeup in between and the slider in between. But it's a matter of staying consistent and sharp with both of the breaking balls, and that's not always easy.
The 1-2 to Loney. Stays alive, fouling it off. Well, from what we've seen of their bullpen and seeing Medina in the first 2 games of this series, good arm and a good hard curveball, but again, controlling all that, keeping it where you want to keep it is the issue.
He's a guy that could go out 3 strikeouts, 3 walks. I mean, we almost did it last night.
Yep. Loney lifts it into left center. Ibanez waits, makes the catch, and the Rays settle for 1 run and leave 2. It's 6-1 Tampa Bay. Rays lead 6-1 as we move into the 8th inning tonight. Jamie Wright had a 1-2-3 7th. He'll pitch the 8th with the top of the order Brad Miller due. Sean Rodriguez moves to left field and Matt Joyce goes into play right. And a big cut and a miss. Miller taking a rip Strike one. Miller 0 for 2 with a walk tonight. There's Matt Joyce in right field. Ground ball right there in front of it. Zobrist at second. Miller is the first out of the 8th. Wesley Wright busy in the bullpen for the Rays. Nick Franklin. He takes a strike. Line drive going to be over the outstretched glove of Zobrist and into right. Franklin has his first hit tonight. Fourth hit picked up by Seattle. Red Sox batting in the 9th inning. It's 2-1. Toronto. 2 outs in the 9th, and David Ortiz up there with the full count against Casey Jansen. Seager, Kyle Seager with a runner at first. Chopper foul. Ortiz has just lifted a fly ball to center, and that will take care of that. The Blue Jays beat the Red Sox tonight 2-1. So the Rays, who had pulled to within 3 with a win last night, have a chance to pull to within 2.
And the most encouraging thing about that, obviously making up ground is huge, but that would Rays are able to hold on here even up in the loss column. And that's what you want. You can be trailing, that's fine, but if you're even in the loss column, you can make those games up.
Then it's truly up to you.
That's right. That's exactly right. Control your own destiny.
Seager pops it, foul, out of play. It's now 1 ball, 2 strikes. So as we look at the American League East right now, you see 51 losses for Boston, 51 losses for the Rays, even in that department. And the Rays now 2.5 back. If they can finish this one off, they would move to within 2.
Hard to believe that Boston will have played 4 more games than the Rays already at this point.
Swing and a miss. Seager missed the curveball. Second strikeout of the game for Jamie Wright. Cobb had 6, Torres 1, and Wright number 2 here.
Good breaking ball, and that has been a good pitch for the righties against the Seattle left-handed hitters in this ball game in particular. Between that breaking ball there, Alex Cobb, what he did with his curveball.
Morales, and the pitch is too low, a ball and no strikes. Chopper foul up the right side. Has been on twice. And an infield hit in the 4th. He walked in the 6th. Starting pitchers in this game, by the way, are the pitchers of record, Cobb and Saunders. It's low. covered up there by Lobatone. Don't forget, as we take a look at the AT&T social media poll, tweet your votes to @Sunsports. What do you think of the new instant replay expansion? TB1 in favor, TB2 not in favor. That's our AT&T Twitter poll question. No room to be undecided in that poll question. Foul toward the camera well. The count goes to 2-2. Two balls, two strikes. Runner at first, two gone. Here it is from Jamie Wright. A swing and a miss. Morales strikes out. 2 strikeouts in the inning for Wright. We go to the bottom of the 8th. 6-1 Tampa Bay.
Bay heads back into AL East play against the Blue Jays. Of course, Jeremy Hellickson, after 3 straight losses, he'll look for his first win since July 26th. He goes up against R.A. Dickey, and he has killed us with those wiffle balls lately. And, of course, tonight, the post-game show presented by Checkers. I'm not going to jinx it, guys, but I'll be in the clubhouse asking some questions, and we're going to mix some Python ones in there as well. Of course, Dwayne and BA, you guys will have a breakdown, and Todd and Orestes steer the ship.
Yeah, but don't take your pet rabbit in there. We go to the bottom of the 8th. Carter caps the new pitcher. First pitch misses to Jose Lobatone. 1 ball, no strikes. Ground ball down to third, gets underneath Seager's glove. Miller with a long throw to first, and that's not going to be in time. Lobatone is aboard.
Well, a chance here for Kyle Seager to make this play. Once that ball is able to squeeze under the glove, you see right there, he just pulls up a little bit early, anticipating a higher hop. That leads to a raised base runner.
So the Rays come up with a base hit. Sample. Camps in with the fastball at 94. Rays in double figures with 10 hits. One and one. Pops it up. Miller, the shortstop, makes the catch. From time to time, we mention Rick Odioso, the premier statistician that we frequently are honored to have his presence in the booth. How about this? Research the name of the game for him. Blue Jays beat the Red Sox 2-1. It's Ben Affleck's birthday. They have had the curse of the Bambino in Boston, as we know. And Affleck, a big Boston Red Sox fan, he's 41 years old today. And apparently there is a curse, the Ben Affleck curse of his birthday. Because since he won the Oscar, the writing Oscar for Good Will Hunting, the Red Sox have not won on his birthday since 1997. And Sean Rodriguez flies out to right. 2 gone here in the 8th. So that's a run of 16 years.
16 years. So let me get this straight. Affleck wins writing Oscar for Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, and he's, as we know, a devoted Red Sox fan.
Huge. That was in 97.
Yep.
Today's his birthday. And since that time, the Red Sox are over.
They are over. Yeah. Actually, they're 0-14. They've had 2 days off on his birthday.
Okay. You know what? Now Odioso's just showing off. Now he's just showing off.
A little chopper foul by Will Myers.
You notice he's rolled the sleeves up on his shirt, too, flexing over there in the corner.
Oh, yeah. And as cool as a cucumber. Just churning out great info.
Yeah. Like, how would you even, like...
Well, you've got to be a creative thinker.
Yeah, you do. That's
he is.
I am so not. That's what's pathetic. Like an art class.
Yep.
Horrible. Terrible writer. Terrible writer.
Really?
Oh, my goodness. Horrendous.
Your sense of humor.
And I love to laugh and obviously love to talk. When you sit me down and have me write something out, I'm a C+ student.
Really?
Terrible. Terrible. An art class, for goodness sake. I mean, finger painting at best. Awful. I could never make a pot.
Never really needed one.
You can buy one.
Myers missed the slider. It's 1-2. Balls, 2 strikes.
Yeah, for me it was math, history, science, gym.
Oh yeah.
Writing and art class. I was a complete waste.
Plenty of time to develop that side of you.
I'm good. I sent my first email like 3 years ago.
Gotcha. 2-2. The right side out of play. So the Rays with this 6-1 lead, facing the 3rd pitcher of the night out there for Seattle. Myers has had a good night. Singled in a run in the 3rd, doubled home 2 and scored in the 5th. Hit by a pitch in the 7th and scored a run. A 2-2 count as he hits in the 8th. Shot toward left center field. That's going to be in there all the way to the track. They're going to wave Lobatone home. Throw to the plate is not in time. He scored standing up on the double by Myers, and the Rays make it 7-1. It's batted in tonight for Will Myers.
How about Will Myers going down? That ball was down in the zone, way down in the zone. You see Capps delivering this ball. It does stay middle of the plate, but down. See Will Myers' head never left that baseball until he made contact. And Lobaton with 2 outs, he's got to go.
Yeah, he's serious coming around third.
Yeah, and not a real big fan of Will Myers right now.
It's Evan Longoria. Fastball 97 for a strike. Well, Myers last night snapped the 0 for 15 with a 2-run homer in the 6th. And he's followed that up with a very good night tonight, driving in 4 runs. With a single, 2 doubles, hit by a pitch, and a run scored then, 2 runs scored overall. 0-2 the count to Longoria. And a cut and a miss. Longoria after the fastball. He's out on strikes. Rays add a run. Zay Lobaton being cooled down in the dugout. 7-1 Rays. He's trying to win 2 out of 3 here from the Seattle Mariners. This copyrighted telecast presented by authority of the Tampa Bay Rays may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Tampa Bay Rays. Wesley Wright will take over on the hill as we go to the 9th inning. Jamie Wright pitched 2 scoreless innings, so one-hit baseball and picked up 3 strikeouts. And Wesley Wright making his 2nd appearance in a Rays uniform. Raul Ibanez leads it off here in the 9th inning. Ibanez has accounted for the Seattle run with a home run in the 2nd. Foul back. Ibanez in the top 10 in home runs with 25. Wesley Wright coming to the Rays from Houston. Line drive and a base hit into left center. Bold over to cut it off. Ibanez has his 2nd hit tonight.
Nice job of staying on that breaking ball and shooting it the other way by Ibanez, and Wesley Wright. You mentioned coming over from the Houston Astros. Now one of 4 left-handers in the bullpen for the Rays, and he is certainly going to get some opportunities coming out of that bullpen. Joe Madden wants to use him as a lefty specialist. Obviously, we'll get his opportunities to face the occasional righty like this right here.
Justin Smoke, switch hitting first baseman, looks at a strike.
Well, he's no stranger to a heavy workload either, much like Joel Peralta in a lot of games. Wesley Wright in a ton of games also. Second as a Ray, 56th overall.
Chopped to third. Longoria takes it to second for 1. First base 2. Longoria, Zobrist-Stallone.
Well, I like how Ben Zobrist over there at second base stays in there to get the throw and then clears second base to be able to set his feet and make the strong final throw to first base. And get out of the way. Get the throw on its way.
So that clears the bases. They're empty with 2 outs. Michael Saunders, the right fielder, stepping in. It's low. Rays an 11-hit attack tonight. 7 runs, 4 driven in by Will Myers. Center field. Cole turns completely around, comes right back and makes the catch to end this game, and the Rays have taken 2 out of 3 from the Seattle Mariners. It's a 7-1 final tonight. The Rays win their 68th game of the year, and with this one they pick up a full game on Boston.